All right, welcome to the Kona Daily Pods, brought to you by TrainingPeaks, the #1 training app in the world. It's used by everyone, from world tour coaches to first-time triathletes. TrainingPeaks is the gold standard for planning, tracking, and making sense of all the suffering. We're here at the Ironman World Championships in Kailua, Kona, the Super Bowl of suffering and athletes pissing themselves. This week's going to be a bit different. This isn't your average media circus. You're not going to hear us dragging pros in interviews between their sponsor shoots and hot and sweaty booth appearances. We want to give them a break this week. They've already got enough media and cameras in their face. Instead, you're going to get the chaos, the rumors on the island, and the stories from people who are actually here on the island. So there's just something about this island. If you've never been here, it's a magical place. You got to come around the race time. So we're just hoping to bring a glimpse of that to you guys who are not here right now. These are going to be short little micro pods, kind of daily pods. We know all y'all's time is valuable, so we appreciate you giving it to us. So we'll be quick. We plan to have on some triathlon nerds, former pros, coaches, and a few people who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about and probably shouldn't be holding a mic in the first place. With that being said, let's dive into it. All right, we are back with, we have an Ironman legend here. It's incredible.
Thanks, mate. Also have Craig Alexander here.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's what I was saying. Crowley, could you imagine if you would have actually won the Ironman World Championship, you could have bought a house like this?
This is not a bad spread.
That's a great joke.
I wish I was Kaiden Lieto growing up here.
Kaiden is... I would never leave home.
No.
This what you guys can't see, the view here is like an endless pool looking out over the ocean. The whole town's below you. Kaiden's living here and he is never leaving, is he?
I don't think so. And to get to that, to see that view, you got to overlook the beautiful white horses that are running around.
Oh yeah, there's a stables out back, as well. Yeah,
it's great. It's delightful.
It's like something out of Kona listings, like New York City listings.
But of course you live here with, what the joke is, of course he lives with his dad, Chris, who didn't manage to win the Ironman World Champs, but still lives in this, what it can only be described as a palatial mansion overlooking the ocean.
And Matt was pretty close. You're pretty close to Chris Lieto, weren't you, back in the day?
What do you mean close to?
Like where are y'all? Or do y'all still talk much?
Well, they're brothers.
They're brothers.
They're as close as brothers.
I didn't even know that.
They're brothers, so they're pretty close.
Can you tell us through, like when he lost to Crowley, how mad was Chris? How mad were you?
Matt was right. Matt was right there.
Yeah, so it was funny in that. In that race, I was also competing. I was pretty far back. So some out and backs. I think I was probably, 6 miles behind you guys or something? It was a while.
I don't know. Who's counting?
It was a while.
But how far was it?
But
Probably
Chris was
8.
in the lead at that was probably mile 23 I saw you? No, 22.
Yeah, it was mile 22.
And
yeah.
Chris was walking. He was in the lead. And of course, I started this sport by supporting Chris and wanted him to do as good as he could. And so even when I was racing, I'd stop and cheer for him and stuff. And at an aid station, he was walking and I stopped and walked with him and threw ice on him and gave him water and was yelling at him, keep going, blah, 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 being tough love. And I turn around and I start running the other direction. And 45 seconds later, it's Craig. And I'm like, Crowy, I love you, but sometimes I fucking hate you. And he apologized to me 15 times after the race. Sorry for beating your brother. Sorry for beating your brother.
He had an awesome race. I mean, I guess it's easy for me to sit here and with my high hat on because I won the race. But, he put on a clinic of how to ride in the wind that day. And we all got to Harvey together and he got off. I mean, I copped flack after the race because I was so far behind, but I actually got off the bike 3rd or 4th that year. I mean, Chris was just in a different zip code from the Uber bikers. The Uber bikers were way behind. So, but yeah, it was we had a good battle that year, Chris and I. I think there were 2 or 3 close races. We got our families. The Lietos would always have the Alexanders over. We'd get to the island 3 weeks early, and the Lietos would have us over. We'd have a barbecue, as we call it in Australia.
We were trying to poison them, but they're resilient.
trying to give us food poisoning. And,
Speaking of that, I love to touch on the development of the sport. Matt and I, we were all talking about at dinner last night. I would say the biggest advancements are nutrition, energy, and shoes. Do you think that back in the day, you guys would be going the same times they were today if you had energy and carbons? You kind of did have
Mark
carbons.
has the straightest face right now.
No, I didn't have carbons, but look,
No
I think every competitive athlete thinks that they could compete, and you're like a mountain climber. You don't see a peak that you don't want to conquer. So if you say to me, do I think I could compete? Of course, I think I could have. But I mean, I don't want to downplay what the athletes are doing now. I think I've said it to you guys. I think every generation actually does get a little better. And part of it is the equipment. Part of it is the knowledge, the way we apply the training. I know from my own personal experience, I used to run out of energy. I could never get more than 60 grams of carbs per hour in. So I think a lot of the new nutrition products would have helped me. And also the bike tech. I mean, the first year I raced here, I basically had a road bike with just aero bars on the front of it. So there's no question that makes a difference, but you do the best with what you have at the time. I mean, I think a better question for me is if I look at some of the best, let's say, let's take the bike, because I know we're talking about bike today. Let's look at some of the best bike riders in the history of Ironman racing. On the men's side, we can look at Chris, we can look at Norman Stadler. On the women's side, we could look at Natasha Budman. I mean, I think they would have ridden comparable times to what's being ridden today. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I remember in 2009, in the transition of a race, Chris saying to me, I mean, I was putting 130 PSI in 21 mil tires. Yeah. And he was saying to me, dude, you got to put 100 or 110 in, and you got to get fatter tires. So we were riding 21s or 23 mils. I know the aero bar setup was way different. But that's technology. And one thing, as someone who was known as a runner, I would have loved to have run a marathon with the new foam and the carbon plates. I think that, not in my lifetime did I think that technology would sort of impact the running discipline the way it has, but it's awesome to see. I mean, the women are doing times now that the men were doing only 15 years ago, and it's not a long time ago. So I think part of it is technology, but a big part of it is I think the athletes and the coaching and across the board, we're just better. We're just more professional than ever.
So I made the straight face and the joke, like no chance before, but it was actually at the notion that it was one or two things. So Craig's answer is perfect. It's not shoes and it's not nutrition. The nutrition, I think, is the biggest single one.
I agree. 100%.
I think the grams of carbs you can absorb an hour makes just a massive difference. But the way Craig's described it is perfectly right. It's the knowledge of the generation that came before you, the mistakes they made, you learn from. It's everything. So you can't, when people go, oh, yeah, but if you put Craig Alexander in the carbon shoes, he'd do this. Even Craig knows you wouldn't do exactly what they're doing today. But with all the factors in, are the athletes as genetically good? Quite possibly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's, Craig had some work to do because I think back in the day, he got his 60 grams of carbs off of like bananas that were duct taped to the top.
Bit of Red Bull, bit of Coke, couple of strawberries and cream, pythons.
Totally. But I do think the nutrition is probably the biggest thing. And me and Chris were talking about it the other day. They're like, oh, we would have done this. We would have, whatever.
Did you had a few beers when you were having this?
Yeah.
Back in my day.
Yeah, exactly.
You were even saying you guys would have about 60 grams.
Yeah, I mean, I probably consumed more calories than anybody else, and I was at 500 calories, which was probably like 60 or 70
But honestly, that's only like 2018, 17.
Yes.
That changed.
That's the crazy thing.
It's only the addition of fructose that allows the absorption. So you could have more than 60, but you can't absorb it.
Yeah.
The problem was they're on glucose, and glucose you can only absorb, even nowadays, you can only absorb maybe 60 grams of glucose. It is honestly only 2017, 2018 that changed overnight. When this discovery came out.
And what I want, and what me and Chris talked about last night, is I think it'd be cool if one of the nutrition sponsors, like obviously we know it's changed. We all say it's probably the biggest thing, is had an invite only race where you're carb limited. 60 grams of carb an hour and see what happens. Entertaining or not?
Oh, yeah. Really unpleasant.
But it would have to be...
Yeah, and that's just how we raced all the time.
Yeah, but of course you would be going out of the numbers you expect to do now. Like you guys were used to these numbers with the blow up. You'd be getting bonks like you've never seen.
It would have to be an Ironman though, because I guess a lot of people can fake not fake 70.3, but you can make it through nutrition on a 70.3.
I think you would still get beat by that person.
100%.
But I think you're not going to have these massive blow ups. Where here, like for me, the reason I was never competitive even then in Ironmans was the fact that
Lack of talent?
yes, and
Beautiful comedic timing there.
totally. And I didn't like to work hard or anything either. But at like 7.5 hours, the math just didn't add up.
No.
And then you're done.
The math ain't mathin'.
No,
No.
it's true.
Sorry, Talbot, go on, mate.
No, I was going to go back to. Do you? How many of the generations though like pushed it forward? Like we saw Daniela in her insane year where she only 3 men outbiked her on the way back. From, two men.
Yeah, what,
Hamworth
year,
and Joe Skipper.
what year was that?
Skipper and Matt Russell, I think.
Okay, cool.
That was like 2019, 2018?
I believe
I think it was 18.
18 or 17, yeah.
And then we've seen Lucy continue to rise, and then you got the likes of Taylor Knibb come in to Ironman, who first raced her, Danielle at the Collins Cup on a road bike and outrode everyone, and it just rise and rise. So that's basically what you're pointing to is like each level just gets risen. Like how many of the females, do you think any of the females this weekend will still outbike her split that was insane back then?
You need the weather conditions.
Yeah.
Because she rode a 426 here.
And had a tailwind the last.
Yeah, like she had it was a real dead wind and then she had a real strong tailwind on the way home. It's that kind of classic Kona day. But is it possible with low winds here, several of the women can ride a 226 on this course, 426? Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. And the other part of her race was that normally she went out full guns blazing and she had come off of that jellyfish sting.
Yeah.
So she like let herself work into it a little bit and then had that. But I agree, the conditions were amazing. But the fact that literally, again, she outrode every pro male except for 2. And those 2 weren't like, they didn't place in the race that high. I can't remember, but they weren't like on the podium or anything. Like they were doing their own thing in the back. But yeah, impressive. I do think we have some women out there that could even or better Daniela because of all the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think nowadays, like I actually talk about it. You know this Brett Sutton position thing. You see Judy DeRon ride it. You see Els Visser ride it. You see some of his other athletes ride this position that he loves. He loves a long crank, super low flat base bar, all this kind of jazz. And it worked in Daniela's era because he had Daniela as an athlete and no one else knew better. I think they're getting caught out with it a little bit now. And when I saw Julie had turned down some parts and she was going to stay Sutton-esque, a little part of me was like, brilliant. Yeah. Because times have moved on, and that's another reason why these women that maybe don't have the power and the training background that Daniela does and just the raw genetics that woman had. I mean,
yeah.
Like they can match her times because they are just better spec now. They put more, like Ditlev changed it. Sebi Kienle changed it. Like they move on to the point where you can't turn up here and expect to win unless you've been in the wind tunnel, you've been prepared, you've got the kit. No one is blagging it anymore off a position that their coach just happens to believe is the best, I would say.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I mean, even talking to some women this week, like they say a few say that like they're about 5 years behind the men. It's the year that they put on it, right? As far as aerodynamics, as far as
by choice, by the way.
Yeah.
Like they're choosing to say they're 5. You can be level with the men. Yeah. You just have to focus on it.
Yeah, it's that they're also in that referring to dynamics of the race, pack dynamics, stuff like that.
I would agree.
Like it all kind of,
Sorry, that's true.
It all kind of develops. But again, like one of the things that made Daniela stand out back then, to your point, was Sutton was a little bit ahead of the time of what everybody else was doing, because at the time, like there were some atrocious positions. But now that's just not a thing anymore.
Was he ahead, or was it just hard training and those who survived it were... I mean, I want to say 15 or 20 years ago, it was more the athlete and their conditioning and their ability to deal with these conditions, the heat and the humidity. Now, I agree with Mark's point. I don't think you can just rely on great aerobic conditioning, and you need a low coefficient of drag. You need to check a lot more boxes. So I think just coming in here being exceptionally well conditioned and fit is just not enough anymore.
Agree 100%.
I thought, though, a phrase, and this is going to turn into a bagging on someone, but they survived it. And that's a phrase that is true of the Sutton era. For every great athlete that a coach like that, and I'm not bagging on him, but that style of old-fashioned coaching had, there were 10 athletes that got multiple stress fractures, failed, and were never seen again.
Yeah.
They survived a harsh regime, and they made it through like gladiatorial spirit.
Yeah.
And that's why they were great.
For sure. And I will choose just not to comment.
There we go.
I'll comment. I remember very early in my career, I did a World Cup race, now that what they call a WTCS race. I finished 4th. I got invited in to the national team set up, and Brett was the coach. And he knew I was a physio. Like he asked me, "How come I've never heard of you before?" I was like, "I'm new to the sport, studying physio at uni," and he had a chuckle about that. Didn't think much of physiotherapists, and then he said to me, "I'm more of a conditioner than a coach." They were his exact words to me. So I was sort of, because I was so new to the sport, I was asking him about, and there was a method to his madness. He had this dossier or file of Paula Newby-Fraser's, Erin Baker's marks, Scott Molina's, elite marathoners, marathon swimmers. So he was pulling the bones out of a lot of different endurance athletes' plans, but in the end, he just said, the athletes that will do well will survive my training. And that's what he said to me. He said, because I was sort of saying, well, what's the methodology here? And he's like, I'm a conditioner more than a coach. That was his words to me.
Let's just say they weren't allowed to eat 200 grams of carb an hour. That's for sure.
Or drink while swimming. Yeah. Or have stress fractures.
Do you think, though, it's the hard work mentality, or it's kind of like what we've seen with the Norwegian boys? It's the group dynamics. Because there was also, at one point, Siri Lindley in Boulder was coaching 10 females, from Leanda Cave, Doc Amanda Stevens, Miranda Carfrey. I mean, you can name 10 of them. Rennie was always the rising star in that group, but is it the group dynamics, or is it that hard work mentality, or do you need a combo of it all? You still need the scientist on board as well.
Yeah, I mean, back then the scientists weren't really on board. I do think that Siri, to a certain extent, a lot of the squad coaching dynamics is exactly what Mark said, maybe to a different degree than with Sutton, but like some will rise to the top and be able to absorb it. And then there's dozens of people from those groups that lasted a year or two and then had no career, because, the group dynamics are great for the best athletes that can absorb everything to just keep pushing. But the ones that are striving to keep up and are overextending, like they're just off the back.
And I do think we get carried away with groups sometimes, right? Because if a coach picks up 2 athletes that happen to do really well and they have good basics,
right,
the other good athletes flock to them. So then you end up with a stable of great athletes. But would those athletes that came later to the group have been great with someone else? Yeah, probably. Yeah. The group dynamics works for some athletes that really need the drive. They need like people around them training hard to get them out the door, to keep them pushing. But there are some athletes that just don't survive in a group. Like Daniela never really trained necessarily with the group so much. She was that solo driven athlete that depended on Brett to do, the background work or whatever. And there are loads of athletes that have survived solo and been...
But also because no other females could train with her. She was always... She had a couple male training. I can't even think of his name back...
I think she openly says she didn't used to like it because there was like the threat, like because you actually can end up... you don't do your session. Like someone's beating you that day, you go too hard and you bury yourself. Like some athletes don't like the group dynamic, and we have these star coaches that come and go. The only constant we have recently, bringing it back to current days, Dan Lorang is probably the one with the stable of athletes, right? That is continuously performing. But who was his first that really did well? It was Jan, right? He was the one that really brought him on to be the celebrity coach that he is.
Well, I think his first client was Annie Haug.
Was she before?
Yeah.
Oh, so Jan went after Annie.
Interestingly, listening to Dan's interview today with Bob, Dan and Annie went to college together, went to university together. That's where they met. But I don't know. I just think...
So he starts with Anne Haug. He picks up Jan Frodeno second.
Yeah.
Well, he ain't going to fail from that point.
Yeah.
They would both... He's off to a racing horse. And then he picks up Lucy Charles. And then he picks up Taylor Knibb. Well, would Lucy Charles and Taylor Knibb be great with someone else? Probably. Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, to your question, though, Talbot, I just think there's a lot of boxes you want to check. And it's not just physiology that's important. Psychology is important. Being self-aware, understanding what you need as an athlete. Some athletes thrive in that group dynamic and environment and others don't. So it's understanding what you need as an athlete. And I think the coach understanding what the group needs, meeting the individual needs of each athlete, but also the group needs. It's never a one-size-fits-all. But I just think... there's more nuance to coaching and training and preparation than there's ever been. There's more things you need to be across. The coaches, I mean, speaking of Dan Lorang, Dr. Dan Plews, we have high-level coaches in our sport now. And I think it's a good thing. I think that speaks to why the performances are going up as well. It's not just a matter of going out and doing the work. I think champion athletes across all areas had discipline and work ethic, and I'm not just saying it's a science, there's an art to coaching and a science to it as well. And I think it's understanding the needs of your athlete, but there's just a lot more things to be across now, like getting the nutrition spot on, getting your equipment spot on. Like Mark said, no one's going out there with a poor CDA and winning this race. It's not just about your massive or your absolute power numbers now. It's getting maximum investment on that.
And people on the regular listeners will know I subtly bag on Olav quite a lot, the coach. And the reason I do so is that from the outside, he professes to be an expert at everything. From CDA to nutrition to technique to this to that. And I think what coaches like Dan and some of these other newer, like great coach, Dan Orang, sorry. Some of these are very clearly Dan Orang, not... Yeah. What they do is they outsource this expertise. You know, like if you are the best sports scientist in terms of, let's talk lactate physiology, you are probably not the best nutritionist in the world, and you're probably not the best aerodynamicist in the world, etc. And these coaches and these great athletes have a plethora of people now helping them. It's not one guy on a Camden
But there
boulder.
still is coaches out there that claim that they know how to fix your swim.
Still are coaches.
Still are coaches.
Yes.
How to fix your swim, how to do your nutrition. They're also aerodynamicist specialists as well.
What they're called, Talbot, is charlatans.
Yeah.
That's the word for that.
But and that's always been true. And any coach that says they know everything is probably a shit coach to a certain extent, right? Because they're not trying to find out what they don't know.
Well, you can't be a proctologist and a brain surgeon, world leading.
Which one are you?
Probably the former. I mean, you've got to have your area of expertise. And I agree 100%. I think having a good team, you know, that whole Formula One idea of having a team of experts, people who are specialists in their area, it's getting that specialized now, the different sort of disciplines around aerodynamics, equipment choice, what brand of super shoe suits a certain running technique or biomechanics. I mean, there's a lot more decisions to make and a lot more homework to do than there used to be. It used to be more about just go out and do the work, survive the work, turn up healthy and in a good headspace. There's just so much more to it now.
I am conscious, by the way, that I sit and talk on the pod and I will give advice on every topic. So I do want to be very clear. What I know is a little bit about every
Yeah.
topic. And there's a reason that the advice Kat gets isn't from me. It's from specialists in those areas. So if I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, I know a little bit about everything to talk to pod.
And you're just regurgitating the stuff you hear from the
100%.
Yeah.
And claiming it as my own most often. Yeah, absolutely.
And I claim to know probably the most because I use ChatGPT now.
Yeah.
Well, you know about exactly the same as Lionel Sanders then.
That's fair. Speaking of tech, is there any new tech this year that you guys have seen that will be used on the Queen K, or is it pretty much all the same?
It's mostly the same. There's some trends coming out, right, with aerodynamics. There's some more popular trends. Like, I think Hogan Howe can be credited for leading it in triathlon, but coming from Remco Evenepoel, like everyone used to be really long. So we went short and then we went really long and everyone went super long at the front. Mm-hmm. And then everyone's sort of realized it's actually quite uncomfortable, hard to hold. And you can test it really well because you can go long and kind of shrug your shoulders, but naturally they splay. So everyone's much shorter on the front end. You'll notice that. And some are really short. Slow Twitch still thinks you're now too short because it hasn't kind of caught up. But athletes have come shorter in general. I would say that's an interesting bike position change. Shorter also means you can go a tiny bit higher, maybe open the hip angle. I think that's a theme I've seen more and more. I'm happy to say this now, by the way, because it's too late for them to change it because Cat's super short.
That's awesome. I'm curious, though, is part of that ability to go short, and I might just be totally wrong here, have to do with nutrition?
Oh,
and
no.
Being able to tighten up that angle and not be stressed in that zone?
No, I thought you were going to say helmets. I think the helmets allow the short to work.
That would have been smarter if I said helmets.
That's my theory, though. So yours could very well be correct.
Yeah.
I think the wide helmet thing means that when you come short, the width and the size of the helmet now, you can close the hand to the helmet and make it more like a bullet rather than trying to like have a needle point. We're now kind of going more like an artillery shell, that kind of cone shape, and the helmet lets it splay into your shoulders. That's my theory.
Yeah, which is kind of actually more similar to like Lance back in the day, like that kind of setup, like a short, snug.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah. But much higher, right? Because we understand the hip angle.
You rode a variety of helmets back in the day. You row from nearly a.
If we get enough beers in Crowe, we could ask him about his bike change just before Kona story, but I don't think there's enough beers
I
yet.
had the details on that one last year by the mechanic who did it.
The first 4 years I raced here, I didn't wear an aero helmet.
Yeah, you just wore a
I
regular.
wore a
training
road helmet, and I was giving up so much time. But you don't know, because we just didn't have accessibility to the wind tunnel. There weren't as many wind tunnels. It was harder to get in. There's more decisions to make now, as I said before. And I think part of it is because of the industry and manufacturing within the industry. There's so much more adjustability and choice with everything. I mean, I don't know, Matt, what you think, but in our day, we were sort of constrained by the aero bars. There wasn't too much variety. There wasn't much adjustability. You almost had to mold your body to the bike. Whereas now I get the sense athletes can get these really like low CDA numbers and be super comfortable because of the adjustability in the cockpits and the bikes themselves. And so we didn't have as many choices to make. But the helmet thing, I just had it in my head that an aero helmet was going to be hotter.
So hot.
So I was going to give up a lot of time on the bike, but hopefully my core body temperature would stay lower and I'd reap the rewards of that. It was kind of a risky decision. And then when I finally got in the wind tunnel and tested, I was like, you imbecile, you should have been wearing an aero helmet the whole time because they're not that much hotter. I swallowed one of those big horse tablets and we did some core body temperature testing with different helmets. I'm like, it's actually not hotter wearing an aero helmet, but it's way quicker.
Yeah.
So,
And even more so now, right? Because the old ones, you used to shrug your head and you get no airflow. Whereas if you put like the Rudy on or any of the big ones, you get airflow underneath it as well. Like there isn't the downside so much anymore.
Yeah, that's fair.
On to the bike course. Who are the strong favorites for the fastest bike split? Or do people care about the fastest bike split here?
within the context of winning the race, it's important. I think for Taylor Knibb, she needs to have the fastest bike split to win here.
Yeah.
And by quite a considerable margin, because I don't know. I mean, I look at the other main contenders, Kat, Laura, even Lucy. I think Lucy's run game's upped a lot.
Real well.
Yeah. I mean, she's been winning T100 races against traditionally athletes you would consider, WTS athletes. And so I think Taylor needs to have the fastest bike split here. I think she's got options to her race. She's such a great swimmer. Can Taylor swim with? I mean, the way this race plays out, I think more than ever what you were speaking about before, Matt, how the dynamics can be different between the men's and the women's race. I see the dynamics this weekend being very important. Who's where out of the swim? Who ends up forming an allegiance on the bike? I mean, I'm guessing at some point Kat and Laura will be close together on the bike.
He certainly hopes not, probably.
I hope not, because Kat's swimming very well. I think the only reason she didn't get away from Laura in Hamburg was there were no good swimmers. And also she didn't act like she should have in that race. And Jackie Herring said it wonderfully. Kat was on the front, if you remember, and she was sort of stressed that people were sat on her feet. And Jackie said, darling, we all sit on people's feet in every race, me and you. Every race we've ever done, we sit on people's feet.
Yeah.
Today was your turn. You were the best swimmer. It was your job. And Kat was like, totally fair.
It feels totally uncomfortable when you're in that
But
position.
then Jackie's totally right. And if anyone says it to you and Jackie Herring says it, the most lovely person in the world, you're like, fair point, babes.
Yeah.
So I mean, Kat would like to gap obviously Laura in the swim. But what I will say is when Laura raced Kat and beat her in Hamburg eventually, Laura's plan was very clear. I'm not pulling a single turn. I'm sitting on Kat and I back myself to outrun her.
Yeah.
If Laura does that here, all Kat has to do is refuse to ride and ask Laura, do you want to win the race?
Yeah.
Because if Kat doesn't ride and Laura then doesn't ride as well, the gap goes, Lucy wins by miles.
Does Laura ride to that group?
But yeah, that's the thing. If
Laura has to ride here.
She does.
Or else she cannot win the race.
She does. And I do think that the likelihood of her being with Kat and having that conversation before Javi is pretty slim because obviously Kat, as you said, there's a lot of good swimmers and Kat has the opportunity she should have 3 to 4 minutes on Laura.
I would settle for one, just some clear air.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll see. We don't know what Laura's been up to. She's had good swims in her life.
Yeah, but I get back to the question, I think. I don't think a Lucy feels like she doesn't need the fastest bike split to win. She needs that gap that she gets in the swim. And she needs to be off.
She could do it, though.
Totally. And she needs to be off the bike in the lead to win. whether that's with people alongside of her because she is running so well, but she needs to be off the bike.
The only thing I'll say is I don't think she has to be off the bike in the lead. She could have Taylor in front of her.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
that's it.
That's the only outside for sure.
Yeah, I guess one person that we haven't talked about yet is Julie Duran out of the race. What are your guys' thoughts when it comes to how she would have affected the race? Obviously, we've only seen her in Valencia so far, but that was news that we haven't talked about yet yesterday.
She had such a dominating performance in San Francisco, and we were like, wow.
She was super good in Vitoria, her qualifying Ironman. Like, that race is not a fast run at all. And you don't know how hard she's running because she's off the front by miles. Does she need to run hard? So you can never say that's someone's best, right? If they're winning by 10 minutes, you can't tell anything from it. She was a real threat here, and I think people were not giving her credit of like how dangerous I perceived her to be, and I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think she was flying under the radar for some reason. I give more credit to her Ironman win than necessarily what she was doing in T100, which was obviously very impressive. But yeah, I mean, I think she would have been a factor, and she was one of those X factors that, like, I think anybody sitting here would not be surprised if she was on the podium. But
Not at all.
you have to get to the start line fit and ready to go, and that's just part of the game, and it can be brutal.
Yeah, I think it's one of the hard things about, I guess, building up to a big Ironman is just withstanding the months leading in, the qualification, all of that. If you're focusing on Ironman Pro Series or T100, you got to navigate a whole season. You've got to manage yourself well all year, and you've got to arrive in your best shape towards the end of a long season. But I agree. I mean, for me, she's been one of the breakthrough performers of the last 2 or 3 seasons. Her results, she's gone into another stratosphere. She would have been a factor in this race, possibly the best runner. I don't know. That's a big call given the run performance we saw in Hamburg between. I mean, for me, that Hamburg, it was a different race to we're going to see here for obvious reasons. There was no one up the road. There was no fastest swimmers, but that run battle is one of the best run battles I've seen, male or female, in any race. I mean, everyone wants an iron war where you're shoulder to shoulder, but for Kat to try something different, to take off at the end of the bike, she was doing all the work anyway. Laura to have the composure in the run to sit 30 seconds behind for 32 kilometers, and Kat holding strong. That for me, a great run battle doesn't have to be shoulder to shoulder. Just the patience and the composure and the level of running at that Hamburg race. I mean, I'm excited for what we're going to see on Saturday. I mean, given the standard of racing we've seen from the women, not just this year, but the last couple of years leading up to this.
And to me, the scary part about that battle is, I think you're right, it probably will be a very similar battle, or the opportunity for that to exist, is that Kat was 5 weeks out of an Ironman. And so she certainly, like, that was not an extra credit, but that was a B race to a certain extent. Correct me if I'm wrong. But also, Laura had a late season as well. She was Nordic skiing till probably March for some of her training, right? So she built in, we're talking about 2 athletes that were focused to have their best race here this weekend, and they had that battle then. So it's hard to know, like, who exactly was, in the best spot. Like, I don't think we saw the best out of those 2 at that race, which is insane because what they did was crazy.
Yeah, I've said it on the pod before, like, in you guys as 2 like ex-Ironman champions, etc. Kat had the fastest swim, the fastest bike, ran a 2:40 marathon as a female and lost.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, what we like?
It's crazy.
And and we get to see that race and add Taylor Knibb and add Lucy Charles.
Yeah.
And add Solveig Lofseth, the debut in Hamburg.
Totally.
2:46 for an 8:12.
And backed it up with an unbelievable win in Lake Placid.
2:46 on that run course.
Yeah.
But can we just, when I was talking bike, her run there, 2:46, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Tamara Jewett ran a 2:40
yeah.
on Lake Placid.
Incredible.
And the problem is she will be too far back on the bike, but I still respect that run no end.
Lisa Perderer had a great race in. I mean, there's a lot of athletes we haven't mentioned who I think at some point will put their fingerprints on the race this weekend. The dynamics, partnerships of convenience that might form out on the Queen K during the bike course.
So just to take you back to the Julie Duran then, and how does it affect? So my take on Kaiden's question, and we're kind of talking on the bike. For me, and I think probably I could say the same for Philip, and I actually can kind of say the same for Lucy, etc. is Julie's in that dangerous place where she gets out the swim with some really good riders. She's ahead of Kat and Laura, probably. She's with the Indy Lees. She's with, kind of that group of girls. There's Holly Lawrence here. There's that sort of stuff. And if they hadn't forced her to put her nose in the wind, she kind of kept the margin in check. She's in that front pack chasing. She stays fresh. That's scary. And Lucy needs a gap on her because she knows she's riding fresh. Laura and Kat can't afford to go past her and tow her comfortably because she's such a good runner. You can't afford to have Julie sat on your wheel because you don't know what she can do.
Yeah.
Taking her out of the race is kind of like, right, we're coming from the back. You girls are out front. Let's go. Whereas Julie was in that dangerous ground.
It presents an opportunity for, like, in road cycling, call it like negative racing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, no, Julie in this race changed the dynamic a lot, I think. But also, too, I think that sort of mindset that the athletes have, when you're someone who has won this race or podiumed here, people know. Like, I think with Julie, would have they expected her to put her nose in the wind? I think when you're here for the first time, you can be someone who's considered a contender. But, I mean, to your point before when you said, Laura has to ride here, and she does. If she wants to defend a title, she has to. She can't sit in and just let the race go up the road and hope that I'm within striking distance. I think that wouldn't be a smart play because the girls up the road could have an insurmountable lead. So at some point, she has to ride. And I think having Julie in the middle of that would have added another layer to what I think is already an interesting dynamic. And I like to talk up every race every year and say, this is the best race and look for reasons why it is. But I mean, we haven't even mentioned Chelsea Sodaro, who's a past champion here. And I don't consider her in the top. I've got 4 clear favourites, I think. I think Chelsea's just a little outside of that. But she is a past champion here. And maybe she's one who could get caught up in the dynamic somehow. And this group from behind comes through and she gets to somehow get, I'm not going to say an armchair ride. It's never an armchair ride. But as we saw last year in the men's race here, if the conditions are such that it's not a windy day, it's harder for the groups to break up. You can get someone sitting on the back of a group and not drafting, but sitting on the back of a group and being the beneficiary of people trying to make the race who are on the front of that group.
Do you think, though, Laura has like this swagger on her? She has this win over Kat. You look at her on social. She used to be kind of quiet. Hi, I'm the lovey-dovey girl. And now it's like she's won that world title last year. She has a win over Kat this year, and she is like confident. I wonder if you'll see that on the Queen K though. She's like, "All right, you guys want to ride? I'll show you. I'll pick you all up, and I'll pull you up to the front."
Mate, I outswam her in Roth. No chance.
I'm
joking.
That was a mic drop.
She has absolute swag here, and for me, that's why I think for me, we won't talk favourites and stuff like that. But is she capable of riding, holding the gap, even closing on some? Absolutely. And the way she is swaggering. Like I think Hamburg was a tactic she chose for that race, and it worked. Does she have other tools in her locker? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, she is a very consistent racer. I mean, looking at those results, and she's the current world champion, and she has obviously, she had 2 fourths here and a third, then she wins a world championship that she'd been searching for years. Like, that gives even more confidence. That swagger existed as soon as she crossed that finish line.
And the setup they've got, they've got like 7 people in their entourage here this year.
Do they?
They are, mate. Their entourage is ridiculous.
I will say Indy Lee had maybe the biggest one I've seen yet.
Yeah, but Indy Lee's got like...
They're not doing anything for her.
Yeah. She's got Rosie Wild on holiday and a few others. Whereas like Laura Phillips got everything coming under the sun. Like they are taking this extremely seriously, and she has the pedigree to back it up.
Yeah, it's great.
But we're trying to keep bike specific so we don't kind of ruin our live show here.
Let's do it.
So you're having Taylor Knibb, fastest bike split?
Yep.
Sure. No, you know what? I think Lucy has the fastest bike split.
Yeah.
How do you see that happening? Like,
I mean, she's done it before.
She absolutely smoked her 2 years ago.
a few times, right? So I think it's a call. I think a safe bet is Taylor because she needs to be off the front. Lucy does not need to. So
that's why I answered Taylor. I think Lucy has a couple more, to use your phrase, tools in the tool belt. I don't think Lucy needs to have the fastest bike ride to win. I think Taylor absolutely needs to have the fastest bike ride to win.
Does Taylor come out of the water with Lucy, or does she ride up to Lucy?
I mean, I don't think that she's getting out of the water with Lucy. I don't think that's
There's something about this race. Sure, she can do it at T100 races. You know, like, but there's 7 girls on Lucy's feet at the moment in T100 races. Yeah, every time she comes here against some absolute uber swimmers, she just goes. There's like when she needs to up the swimming training a little bit, she knows she has to go clear. It's part of my game plan. You know, in the T100 races, does she want a bit of help on the bike so she can outrun these girls and run slightly fresher? Probably, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas she doesn't want to have to ride solo. She tried that for a whole 2 years and they ran her down every single time. And this year, I think she's kind of let them hang in the swim. I think Lucy goes solo.
Yeah. Kaiden?
I don't know. I see Lucy going solo, but at the same time in 2023, Taylor started on the far right side on the lineup. She was completely by herself, like 30, 40 yards or 30, 40 feet to the right, like right up against the pier, which in my opinion with currents and stuff like that is the worst place to start on the start line.
Shut up.
I'll say whatever I want. I'm the local here. I'll kick you off right now. Anyways.
He's totally right.
Yeah. So the left side is the side to start. And I remember I was sitting with Talbot or someone on the pier right as the gun's about to go off, and she's floating by herself on the right. And I'm like, what is she doing? Starting way behind everyone else. Everyone's creeping forward. She's way off to the right. Do we see that happening again? Or if she sits right next to Lucy off the start of the swim, would she grab those feet? I guess that's the question. And when it comes back to Lucy having the fastest bike split, I think Taylor rides up to Lucy 100%. And then we see if Lucy decides to go with her or if she more or less backs her run. Because we've seen it. I mean, for Lucy to win a T100 off of a run, and it has nothing to do with the swim or the bike, obviously she's up in the front, but to win it on the run, she has to have a lot of confidence when it comes to her run.
To answer your question, I don't think Taylor is going to line up at the pier again. But Taylor's been pretty open. Like, she likes space. Like, I do not think Taylor is going to line up next to Lucy. There's almost zero chance that happens. So I still don't think she's going to swim with her. I do think at some point she'll bridge up because she has to if winning this race is what her goal is.
I think there's no rule to start near the pier or wide. It depends on the current and the conditions, the tide at that time of the day. And also the personality. Like, if Taylor wants to swim on her own, if I'm Taylor, I'd be starting right next to Lucy. I think if you're any chance even to sit on her feet to halfway, you take it. Lucy's clearly the best swimmer, but I agree with Mark and you guys. I think she'll be solo here. And it was interesting speaking to Dan Lorang this morning. He said Lucy, because we were talking about her T100 victories, the last 2, how she's won it in the run. And he said she's had the most consistent and uninterrupted block of run training this year that she's ever had. So that always, I think, is a good sign that someone's going to run well over a marathon.
And she does not start an Ironman unless she's in good position to win that Ironman.
Like, she dropped out of the race week last year.
Yeah.
She's not starting if she can't. And
exactly.
The most remarkable thing about Lucy is in her entire pro career, she's never been worse than second in this Ironman. We joke, this isn't a race. Like, there's not 50 people in the race if you want to win. You have to beat one person if you want to win.
Yeah,
you beat Lucy, you're going to win.
That's a fair call.
Like, because she's been here for like.
And if you beat her, she's second and you're first.
Exactly, because you're going to win.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I think to our point before about Laura, she has to ride because of that stat alone. And also, there's a difference between being a contender or being someone who's won here before. She's going to get no help, so she is going to have to ride Laura. So if she wants to win, because you know what Taylor's going to do, I think we've got a fair idea. Lucy's going to be somewhere up there too. We know Kat's intentions, and Kat has been courageous in her races. She's not scared to change the tactics a little bit and not just sit in a group and think, well, someone else is a good runner, I might try and take some sting out of their legs towards the end of the bike. I think it's going to be interesting. We talked about, does Laura have swagger? She's going to need it she's not going to get any help as the defending champ.
Does Laura catch Kat on the bike? And what do you think, Matt?
It depends on the swim. I don't think so. It depends who else is around too, but I'll let these other guys answer that. But I do want to. No, they don't want to. We also haven't mentioned Solveig Lovseth at all on this bike. And I think Lisa Perder is flying under the radar and has the capabilities to be somewhere. I don't think she's going to have the fastest bike split, but she'll be a factor, I believe.
Lisa Pertra is real hard to drop is one thing I've learned this year. Like it took Kat 100k in Texas to drop her.
Yeah.
And then like Lisa basically held her in Zalmzee when she put like 5 minutes into Solveig.
Yeah.
Like Lisa is a really good bike rider. I think though Lisa would say herself right now, like the very best probably don't consider her a threat on the run. So they don't actively try and dispatch her.
Yeah.
You know, like if Laura has Lisa in her wheel, Laura's fine. You know, Laura can ride as hard as she wants and she's not worried about Lisa.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that Lisa can ride brilliantly. She's one of the few people that can hold these girls. She'll have an excellent bike time wherever she starts. Because if she starts the bike with Solveig, she'll stay with Solveig. If she starts it with Kat, she'll stay with Kat. All of these girls for a very long time. And it will put her in a great position.
Yeah.
And one thing we know about Lisa Pertra is she loves the heat.
Yeah.
You know, she was brilliant in Singapore. I always joke, she doesn't look Austrian. She kind of looks Mediterranean in her complexion. And she's very open that she likes the heat. So I think she'll be one of these girls that's prepared to ride harder than others through a slight lack of fear of the heat coming later. So she might be prepared to go a bit deeper on the bike because she knows she can cope with this condition.
Yeah, and we talk about, and the conditions very different, but she's obviously great in these conditions, as you just said. But talked about Solveig Lofset's win at Placid. Lisa Pertra was first off the bike at Placid with a penalty. So she can do it on her own too. Yeah. I think your points are great that she can hang and be on a wheel to a certain extent, but she can also kind of do it her own.
Oh, she's a phenomenal rider.
And let's not forget that penalty in Placid. Lisa rode up to the back end of the men's pro field. That was a draft penalty off a male pro athlete who she'd caught and ridden 3 minutes out of.
And it wasn't a drafting penalty. I would say she was passing up a hill, and then as soon as the hill crested, he had more weight and momentum, and she could not pass.
What we're talking about there is, and the man should have dropped back the minute she got close, and don't interrupt the women's race.
100%. Yeah.
Yep. Fair enough.
Well, before we close it out, Matt, you coach athletes?
Yeah.
Who all do you coach?
I coach some athletes. We kind of try to keep it on a little down low.
Oh,
Lisa Bashars is here training.
Speaking of great riders,
yeah, she's one of the better riders.
when are we going to see her on the island?
The next couple of days. Racing, never.
Oh, that's what I was looking forward to.
I don't think that's something that she wants to do, but you'll see her smiley face around.
Can we reminisce about the real race? The Kiki Dip and Dash Tuesday afternoon race week, and let's take our mind back to 2009.
Some previous champions.
Well, just a nice head-to-head battle between Lucy Alexander and Kaiden Lieto.
Oh,
wow! Look at
man!
I almost made this joke when you talked about the Alexander family and the Lieto family, and you were like, we had barbecues here, and I wanted to say when Kaiden missed his shot with your daughter. That's what I was going to say.
Well, he hasn't missed his shot. He's a good young man, mate. You're always welcome around our place, Kaiden.
but she's off in South Carolina now.
She's at the College of Charleston. Yeah,
it's closer to Australia. Closer to Australia.
Yeah, she's on a running scholarship. So yeah.
And will we see her race on the island?
All is not lost.
Are you going to let her get into the sport?
She's a 20-year-old. She makes up her own mind. I've never had any say in the things she wants to do. I make suggestions, and then I get put back in my box.
That's great.
Crowy, did you back in the day when you used to analyze all your training? What platform did you use?
I had a handwritten training diary.
Handwritten?
Yeah.
You handwrote everything yourself?
I should send you. I stored them all at home in my office. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I believe that. Yeah.
Really?
Do you have an abacus too to put things together?
Don't know how to use
the craziest thing about
I'm not that old school. Come on.
You know what the craziest thing about that is now there actually is training platforms called TrainingPeaks. So that just shows your age. How old you are that you couldn't even analyze your data back then.
Crowley, we're sponsored by TrainingPeaks. He's working real hard to get this in.
He was really trying to get
Don't give him something
No, but it just shows his age.
So if you aren't born in 1901 and want to update your training platform, log on to TrainingPeaks, get yourself backwritten data for every session you've ever done. The analytics are wonderful. We're using Cat's Taper on TrainingPeaks now, not sponsored by, weren't ever sponsored by. The two factors we look at, like fitness score and then freshness score, and we just kind of, we do rely on it still to this day. And I do love being able to look back at how fit I once was and how bad I am now.
That I hate that part.
Me too, mate.
I'm like a quarter what I used to be. That's great. I want to say something about TrainingPeaks because I actually genuinely, when I was coaching back in the day, I kind of thought that like CTL, all that stuff, I was like, that's just a gimmick. You know, they're just trying to sell more product. And then I went to a coaching certification for USA Cycling, and it was in conjunction with TrainingPeaks. And we went, through, all that CTL, all the stuff, right? And you can I probably don't remember exactly what everything is, but they had us go through athletes the year prior and look at how their scores matched with performance. And I've always, as coach, I was very proud, like, no, I communicate with my athletes. I don't need gimmicks or whatever to show if they're in the right spot. And I had 2 athletes, a professional cyclist and a professional triathlete. And without me ever using that data to coach them, it all hit at the very right spot. It matched within a week to 10 days before their biggest race of the year.
Wow.
And they were like, oh, that means you're really in tune with your athletes. I'm like, oh no, I mean that now I know that this works. Like that's the important thing.
Yeah,
that
the
works.
back proving almost. Yeah,
Exactly.
like a blind study because you weren't using it at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I look at it as a marker. I don't necessarily build programs with it, but you can see where an athlete is, if they've gone a little bit too far or where the peak freshness is. And I think it's a great tool.
Thanks for coming on, Croy. Thanks, Matt.
Shaka.
Caden, this was required for you.
I mean, I spoke like 2 things, and I said Julie Duran won Valencia, and it was Victoria. So, yeah, it was a good
we
time.
got to embarrass you about.
Yeah, it was
Craig,
great.
so,
It was
yeah.
great. I got hit a couple times, but it was great.
okay.
It was great being on with you guys.
And Mark made it through a podcast without making any enemies for Kat this weekend.
And I didn't swear once.
You actually
I
did.
swore a couple times.
No. Mark definitely took a little hit at Laura. He said he outswam her at Roth.
Oh yeah.
He immediately
Actually, by the way, I
pulled that
didn't.
out.
She did me by 15 seconds. That was a
15
lie as well,
seconds.
You know.
Yeah.
15 seconds. Thanks, everyone.
I've never.